Aaron learned on their first public action of Pharaoh. They thought that since God sent them to speak, that Pharaoh would simply do what God told them to do. They really believed that just because they said, God says, let my people go, Pharaoh would let them go. What a sight Aaron and Moses must have looked like in front of Pharaoh in all of his power. It must have been like a few folk gathered in front of City Hall, standing and speaking with a half-broken microphone and one speaker. After Moses and Aaron's failed action in front of Pharaoh's City Hall, the king then took away the straw from the brick-making process. And instead of things getting better, things got worse. The people now had to make the same amount of bricks without the straw. And Moses looked at God and asked God why. Why in the world would you send me here to fight for you if you were not prepared to give me the wind? But I believe that God hardened the heart of Pharaoh because so many times as people we get so comfortable in our oppression that we will forget that we got to fight if we want to get free. We forget the words of Frederick Douglass, who said so long ago, those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men and women who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. In community organizing, one of the questions we ask ourselves very often is, where is the win? And I think that sometimes we get so focused on that question that we miss the other important question. Where is the fight? The win is not up to us, the win is up to God. But the fight must be initiated by people of faith who believe in a God who can still create miracles. God doesn't need us to win the fight. Sometimes God just needs somebody to start the fight. And I believe that God has called us to say to the Pharaoh of this generation that the battle is not ours, but the battle is still the Lord's. And as we stand here picking a fight against a law that seeks to take the voice and the will from the people, we realize that if we stand by faith, we'll be able to share the same testimony as brothers and sisters whose shoulders we stand upon. For it was by faith that Moses went back again to Pharaoh and ultimately raised up the staff, and the Red Sea parted, and the people crossed out of oppression and bondage into and toward the promised land. It was by faith that Joshua and the people circled around the walls of Jericho, and simply with a shout, the walls came tumbling down. It was by faith that David walked into a valley to face a giant with nothing more than a slingshot, and yet God brought the giant down. By faith, Daniel instead went into a lion's den rather than to give up his position of religious freedom. And by faith, the lions never touched him all night long. By faith, Richard Allen stood in front of this same court and he walked away with the victory. By faith, Rosa Parks sat down until Martin Luther King stood up. By faith, Abraham Heschel walked arm in arm with folk who had a fight that was not his. By faith, Cesar Chavez co-founded the National Farm Workers Association. By faith, Nelson Mandela went to jail so that others might be free. And by faith, we gathered to say, let my people vote. Let my people vote, regardless of political party. Let my people vote, regardless of class and economic condition. Let my people vote, whether Democrat or Republican or Green Party or Independent. God says, my brothers and sisters, let my people vote.